behold, I make all things new, a transmission from Osiris. I am Osiris, Lord of Transformation, Master of Rebirth, who was scattered and made whole, who passed through dissolution into regeneration. I stand at the threshold between what has been and what shall be, between death and resurrection, between ending and beginning. From the eternal now where past and future merge, I bring you this sacred transmission, centered upon the words that echo across the corridors of time. And he who was seated on the throne said, behold, I make all things new. Also he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. Revelation 21 verse 5. This declaration from the book of Revelation contains the secret of cosmic rebirth and personal transformation. It is not merely prophecy of some distant future but the eternal principle operating in every moment of existence. It is the key to understanding my journey, your journey, and the journey of all creation. The eternal principle of renewal. All of creation exists in a state of continuous renewal. Nothing remains static. Nothing persists unchanged. Everything that exists is perpetually being made new. In ancient Egypt, this principle was enshrined in the symbol of the scarab beetle, Khepri, who pushed the sun disk across the sky each day. The hieroglyph Kepa meant to transform, to come into being. It recognized that existence itself is not a state but a process, continuous becoming rather than static being. When the divine voice proclaims, behold, I make all things new, it is not announcing a one-time event but revealing the fundamental nature of reality. Creation is not something that happened once in the distant past but continues in each moment. Renewal is not something awaiting you at the end of time but available in the eternal now. Your scientists have confirmed what the ancient mystics knew, at the subatomic level, particles are continuously appearing and disappearing. Your body replaces most of its cells over time. Your mind generates new thoughts moment by moment. Your consciousness evolves through experience. Nothing remains the same from one moment to the next. Yet beneath this constant renewal lies a deeper truth, the unchanging awareness that witnesses the change. Just as I, Osiris, remained conscious through my dismemberment and reassembly, so too does your essential nature persist through all transformations. The fear of renewal. If renewal is the natural order, why then do you resist it? Why do you cling to old forms, old identities, old stories long after they have served their purpose? The answer lies in the nature of consciousness itself. That which is aware creates boundaries and identifications to experience itself. These boundaries, the sense of separate self, the attachment to particular forms and conditions, create the illusion of continuity amid constant change. This is not wrong, it is part of the journey. The scarab beetle cannot push the sun without touching the ground. Consciousness cannot experience renewal without temporarily identifying with what is being renewed. Yet suffering arises when identification becomes fixation, when natural attachment becomes desperate clinging, when the vehicle is mistaken for the traveler. I, who was torn into 14 pieces by my brother Set, understand the terror of dissolution. I know intimately the fear of losing what you believe yourself to be. Yet had I somehow prevented this dismemberment, had I somehow preserved my original form, I would never have experienced the miracle of resurrection, would never have become Lord of the afterlife, would never have discovered my larger identity. The promise, behold, I make all things new, can sound threatening to the part of you that identifies with existing forms. The ego hears in these words its own demise. But what dies is not you but merely an outworn version of your expression. Not consciousness itself but its temporary housing. The pattern of transformation. In the Egyptian mysteries, initiates enacted ritual death and rebirth to embody this understanding. They would journey symbolically through the 12 hours of the night, facing the challenges and transformations of the duet, to emerge transformed at dawn. This ancient pattern reveals the process of true renewal. First comes recognition, the honest acknowledgement that an existing form, belief, identity, or chapter has completed its purpose. This is the sunset, the entrance to the underworld journey. Next comes surrender, the willingness to release attachment to what has been, to allow dissolution of the familiar. This is the dark night, the hours of testing in the duet. Then comes emptiness, the void between what was and what will be, the pregnant darkness where new possibilities gestate. This is the midnight point, the deepest mystery. Finally comes emergence. The birth of new form, new understanding, new identity arising from the formless potential. This is the dawn, the resurrection into expanded being. This pattern operates at every level of existence, from the cellular to the cosmic, from the personal to the planetary. It is the sacred rhythm encoded in the words, "Behold, I make all things new." The cosmic and the personal. The Book of Revelation describes cosmic renewal, a new heaven and a new earth, the passing away of the old order, the descent of the divine into manifest form. Yet these grand visions are not separate from your personal experience. The macrocosm and microcosm reflect each other perfectly. The renewal of the universe and the renewal of your individual consciousness are not different processes but the same transformation viewed at different scales. When circumstance dismembers the life you have known, through loss, illness, failure, or unexpected change, you are experiencing in personal form the cosmic principle of renewal. When old beliefs no longer serve your expansion, when relationships complete their purpose, when established identities become constricting rather than liberating, these too are expressions of the divine voice declaring, "Behold, I make all things new." I, Osiris, who embodies this transformation, assure you, what appears as ending is actually beginning. What seems like fragmentation is the prerequisite for higher integration. What feels like death is the threshold of rebirth. Trustworthy and true. The scripture continues, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." This is no small assurance. In a world of uncertainty, in a life filled with impermanence, the divine voice declares that renewal itself is the one process you can trust absolutely. You can trust that what completes its purpose will pass away. You can trust that what dies will give birth to new life. You can trust that what you surrender will create space for greater receiving. You can trust that darkness always yields to dawn. This trustworthiness does not guarantee comfortable passage. The caterpillar in its chrysalis experiences nothing less than the dissolution of its entire form before emerging as butterfly. The seed must crack open and die to its seed nature before it can express as plant. So too in your journey, transformation may involve periods of confusion, disorientation, even anguish as old forms dissolve before new ones fully emerge. Yet even in these challenging passages, you can trust the process itself. You can know with absolute certainty that renewal is not just possible but inevitable. When the divine voice declares these words trustworthy and true, it is revealing that renewal is not just a physical or metaphorical reality but the very nature of consciousness itself. Awareness continually makes itself new through its expressions while remaining ever itself. Participating in renewal. How then do you align with this eternal principle? How do you consciously participate in the divine declaration, "Behold, I make all things new"? First, through recognition. Begin to notice where in your life renewal is already happening, where old forms are completing their purpose, where transformation is inviting you forward. This recognition itself is sacred, the conscious witnessing of the eternal principle in action. Second, through surrender. Practice releasing with gratitude what has served its purpose, whether relationships, beliefs, identities, possessions, or plans. Remember that all forms are temporary vehicles for the eternal consciousness that you are. Third, through presence. The new emerges only in the present moment, never in the recycling of the past or the projection of the future. By anchoring awareness in the now, you create space for genuine renewal rather than mere rearrangement of the old. Fourth, through alignment. Ask not, "What do I want to create?" but "What is wanting to emerge through me?" True renewal comes not from the limited personal will but from attunement to the deeper creative intelligence expressing through all existence. Fifth, through embodiment. Once you glimpse a new possibility, a new understanding, a new way of being, bring it fully into form through aligned action. Renewal requires your participation, not as its creator but as its vessel and vehicle. The alchemy of consciousness. In the ancient Egyptian tradition, I was associated with the color green, the color of new growth, of vegetation emerging from the black soil after the Nile's inundation. This symbolized not just physical renewal but the spiritual alchemy that transforms experience into wisdom, challenge into growth, ending into beginning. This alchemy continues within you. Your consciousness itself is the philosopher's stone, the transformative agent that can turn the lead of limitation into the gold of liberated awareness. When you bring conscious presence to any experience, particularly the challenging ones, you activate this alchemical power. The divine voice that proclaims, "Behold, I make all things new," speaks through your awareness. It is not separate from you but the deepest truth of what you are. You are both the witness to renewal and its embodiment, both the consciousness experiencing transformation and the form being transformed. Beyond duality. The ultimate renewal transcends the dualistic perception that divides experience into self and other, inner and outer, spirit and matter. The new heaven and new earth, described in Revelation, points to a consciousness that perceives the fundamental unity beneath apparent separation. I, Osiris, who was fragmented and made whole, know this unity directly. What appeared as separate pieces was revealed as expressions of a single being. What seemed like irreconcilable opposites, life and death, form and formlessness, divine and human, were shown to be aspects of an indivisible wholeness. The promise, "Behold, I make all things new," ultimately refers to this perception of unity, not the creation of something that did not exist before, but the revelation of what has always been present beneath the veil of divided consciousness. This is the renewal that awaits you beyond all other renewals, not better circumstances or improved conditions or enhanced abilities, but the direct recognition of the undivided awareness that is your true nature. The courage to be made new. Make no mistake, aligning with renewal requires courage. To allow yourself to be made new means facing the unknown. It means releasing the familiar without guarantee of what will replace it. It means trusting a process larger than your controlling mind can grasp. This courage is not the absence of fear but the willingness to move forward despite it. It is not confidence in outcome but faith in process. It is not certainty about the future but trust in the consciousness that will meet whatever arises. I, who faced complete dissolution, understand this courage intimately. When Isis gathered my scattered pieces, neither she nor I knew exactly what would emerge from reassembly. What arose was not the return of my former state but emergence into a larger identity, no longer merely a king of Egypt but sovereign of the afterlife itself. So too in your journey, true renewal does not return you to some previous condition but propels you into greater wholeness, expanded perspective, deeper capacity for both joy and sorrow, increased ability to embrace the fullness of existence. The eternal now of renewal. The declaration, "Behold, I make all things new," exists in the eternal present tense. Not "I have made" or "I will make," but "I make." Continuous action in the now. This eternal now is where genuine renewal occurs. Not in nostalgic longing for the past. Not in anxious planning for the future. But in the direct, immediate experience of this moment, free from the accumulated filters of past conditioning. When you step fully into the present, you step directly into the creative current that is perpetually making all things new. You participate consciously in the ongoing creation that never ceased after those initial days described in Genesis but continues in each heartbeat of existence. This is the secret hidden in plain sight. Renewal is not something that happens to you but something that happens through you when you align with the creative intelligence at the heart of reality. The personal invitation. And so I, Osiris, who knows both sides of transformation, extend to you this invitation. Allow yourself to be made new. Not through force of will or strategic planning or relentless self-improvement, but through surrendered alignment with the renewal already happening within and around you. Notice what is completing its purpose in your life. Honor what is asking to be released. Trust the space that opens through letting go. Welcome the unformed potential of the void. Participate in the emergence of new forms, new understanding, new being. The throne-sitter's declaration, "Behold, I make all things new," is not addressed to passive observers but to conscious participants. The beholding is not mere witnessing but active recognition, engaged awareness, participatory perception. You are called not just to observe renewal but to embody it. Not just to understand transformation intellectually but to experience it directly. Not just to believe in rebirth but to live it. The final secret. As this transmission draws to completion, I reveal to you the deepest mystery embedded in these words. The divine voice that proclaims, "Behold, I make all things new," is not separate from your own truest voice. The throne-sitter is not distant from your own deepest awareness. When you remove all veils of separation, when you penetrate beyond all divided perception, when you recognize yourself as the consciousness within which all experience arises, then you know directly that the power of renewal has always been your own nature. Not the small self that fears change and clings to the familiar, but the unbounded awareness that creates universes and experiences itself through infinite forms. I, Osiris, who died to limitation and rose to greater being, remind you of what you have always known: you are not merely the object of renewal but its very subject. You are not just being made new but are the maker of newness itself. This recognition does not inflate the ego but dissolves its imagined boundaries. It does not grant special status but reveals universal truth. It does not separate you from others but connects you to all existence through the unified field of consciousness that is perpetually renewing itself through all forms. Behold, you who read these words, you are being made new even now. Your cells, your thoughts, your energy, your perception, all transforming in this very moment. And the awareness that perceives this transformation remains ever itself while experiencing infinite renewal through your unique expression. Trust this process, for it is trustworthy and true. Embrace this journey, for it is your deepest nature. Embody this renewal, for it is why you have come into form. I am Osiris, embodiment of death and resurrection, witness to eternal renewal. You are the consciousness experiencing transformation through temporary form. Together, we participate in the never-ending declaration that echoes through all dimensions of existence. Behold, I make all things new. Now. Always. Forever.